Okay, welcome back. Today we're continuing our review of our third BCBA practice exam, where we're going through the next 10 questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. If you're looking for this exam plus our other two, please check out bcbastudy.com. We also offer a full task list study guide and our combo pack, which includes everything. As always, questions, comments, please let us know. Work hard, study hard. Let's get to our questions. 1. A standard acceleration chart is most commonly used in what type of teaching? A standard acceleration chart looks at fluency. So we're looking at fluency of the learner. And when we're using this very specific type of chart, we're typically using a very specific type of teaching. And this is kind of a rote question that you just need to know. There's not many of those on the exam, but there are some things like our scallop question where you just need to know it. So if we ever see or talk about standard acceleration charts, immediately think precision teaching. We're focused on fluency, we're focused on increasing fluency, and we're focused on graphing the data and immediately analyzing and adjusting. So again, if you see standard acceleration chart, think precision teaching. Which of the following is least likely to be part of an indirect assessment? Now we see a term, what do? We define it. Indirect assessment, we aren't actually observing our learner, our student, or our client. You're not watching the person of interest. You're doing other things to find out about the person of interest. In this case, we're looking for the procedure or the assessment, which is going to be the least likely. So 3 of these are most likely to be indirect assessments. 1 is not. A survey. Is a survey probably an indirect assessment? Yes. With the survey, what are you doing? You're handing out or distributing a couple questions, having them fill out, and then you're making your own evaluations. You're not actually observing anything occur. How about a checklist? Same thing. You're going around and making checklists, or you're checking off things that have been done, not even necessarily observing them. If you ask someone to clean your house and you want to make a checklist of they clean the kitchen, the bathrooms, the bedrooms, are you really observing them? No, you're coming behind them and checking off everything that's been done. Most likely indirectly. What about an interview? An interview is one of the most common forms of indirect assessments. We're asking questions to people who know the person of interest, but again, not actually observing. So that leaves scatter plot. A scatter plot does what? Scatter plot typically finds a correlation between our y and x axis, typically between time and behavior. And if we want to really get a good indication on our scatter plot between time and behavior, what should we do? We should go out and observe ourselves. Very commonly, these are used in schools when we want to determine when is a client most aggressive. Well, between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock, it was determined the client was most aggressive because our scatter plot indicates that's when aggression occurred the most, right? And in order to really figure that out, we need to do it directly. So of the following, the least likely to be an indirect assessment would be a scatter plot. What are the 3 goals of behavior analysis as a science? One of the first things on our task list, 3 goals of behavior analysis as a science. And it gets a little overwhelming at first because you have our 3 goals, then you have the attitudes of science, then you have the assumptions of ABA, you have the principles. Don't get overwhelmed in the beginning, okay? Just take it piece by piece. A lot of people like to use little memory joggers, okay? They use acronyms. That's fine. Whatever it's going to take to help you remember the attitudes of science and our goals of behavior analysis and the philosophical assumptions, all these things that you need to know, okay? In this case, we're looking at the 3 goals of behavior analysis. So let's just think about this from a fundamental standpoint. Fundamentally, what are we trying to accomplish? Well, we're studying human behavior. And if we're going to use applied behavior analysis, we're actually experimenting with human behavior. So we really want to do what with experiments? We want to establish experimental control. And to get there, what do we need to do? A, prediction, verification, and replication. Well, these are what we consider when we do experimental designs, single subject designs, but they aren't the 3 goals of behavior analysis as a whole. Determinism, parsimony, experimentation, These might be parts of science, but we're looking at the broad idea of our 3 goals of behavior analysis. Accurate, valid, reliable. That is indicating good data. Good data is accurate, valid, and reliable. So it leaves description, prediction, and control. These are our 3 goals. Description, we are going to observe and describe the behavior. Prediction, we're going to form hypotheses. Control, we're going to try to obtain control over the behavior through our manipulation of the independent variables. So our 3 goals of behavior analysis science are description, prediction, and control. 4, after she plays through an entire song on the piano, Tiffany goes back to the sections that she messed up and plays each of those sections 10 times correctly. What type of procedure is this? Okay, be very careful here, right? What is happening? Well, Tiffany's going back to the sections that she messed up, but she's playing them correctly, and that's the key. Is this restitutional overcorrection? What is restitutional overcorrection? Restitutional overcorrection sees the learner or the client repairing the environment to a better state than before. Is Tiffany repairing the environment? She is not. She's engaging in some sort of practice. What about negative reinforcement? Not negative reinforcement. We're not removing anything. Okay. So it's going to be positive practice or negative practice. And both of these are very similar because we're repeating something over and over again. With positive practice, though, we're engaging in the target behavior, the correct behavior over and over. With negative practice, we're engaging in the wrong behavior over and over. So if I spill a cup of water and I engage in negative practice, I will spill that cup of water over and over again. In this case, Tiffany is doing what? Well, she's going back and playing the sections correctly. So she's engaging in positive practice. Studying the impact of differential reinforcement on a group of 6th graders during PE and lunch would be considered what? We need to know the different types of behaviorism that we're involved in. So experimental analysis of behavior, applied behavior analysis, practice guided by behavior analysis. You have to know the difference, okay? If we're studying the impact of differential reinforcement on these 6th graders during PE and lunch, not going to be respondent conditioning, okay? We're studying, right? We're not actually implementing. So it's not practice guided by behavior analysis. Practice guided by behavior analysis is the actual implementation of our research. And it's very confusing because we just use ABA to describe everything, right? Service, experimentation, everything. Technically, and the exam wants you to know the technical pieces, practice guided by behavior analyses is our direct intervention. It's what our RBTs are doing day in and day out. Here, we're still studying using behavior analysis, right? And we're studying what? We're studying humans, a group of 6th graders, okay? So the real difference, the main difference, the primary difference between experimental analysis of behavior and applied behavior analysis, experimental analysis of behavior typically takes place in a lab setting with typically animals, because experimental analysis of behavior is what Skinner first started with. Applied behavior analysis is what we use, right? It's our applied use of what we learn in labs to humans to determine interventions to change to use during practice guided by behavior analysis. So if we're in this natural environment studying 6th graders, it's going to be applied behavior analysis. Make sure you understand these. Make sure you understand the difference. It's important. They're going to ask you about it. Sam wants to stop drinking coffee. He decides he is going to unplug his coffee machine so that when he turns it on, nothing happens. For the next week, Sam tries to turn on his coffee machine each morning by pushing the button harder and harder. This is considered a what? All right, real life scenario here. So be careful. You notice response blocking isn't one of our options because response blocking, this is not. Response blocking is preventing a response from being able to occur. Okay. In this case, the response can still occur. Sam can still push the button over and over again. Nothing's going to happen. So don't think it's response blocking. So what is happening, right? Well, he unplugs his coffee machine. So when he turns it on, nothing happens. Well, we're withholding reinforcement for a previously reinforced behavior. Previously, every time Sam tried to turn his coffee machine on, what happens? It turns on. This time, nothing happens. So now, as he's trying to turn on his coffee machine by pushing the button harder and harder, Sam is going through an extinction burst, because an extinction burst is what? A predictable increase in the behavior once extinction begins. Sam is simply going through his extinction burst. Typically, I get reinforcement when I push the button once. I don't get reinforcement today. I'm going to push it harder and harder and harder. So eventually my behavior is going to decrease. Isn't resistance to extinction. Resistance to extinction is typically how long it takes extinction to kick in. If we're already in the extinction burst, extinction is effective. It's not spontaneous recovery, because spontaneous recovery is the sudden reemergence of a previously extinguished behavior. And it's not regression, because regression isn't defined as part of extinction, right? So Sam tries to turn the coffee machine by pushing the button harder and harder. He is going through an extinction burst. Joey and Ross are left home alone for 2 hours and make a giant mess in the living room. When their parents get home, Joey and Ross have to clean the entire house. This is an example of, all right, another punishment question. We just went over these, right? Things like restitutional overcorrection, negative practice, positive practice. Always know the difference. So again, positive and negative practice, we're engaging in the behavior over and over again, either the right way or the wrong way. Response cost, we're removing something. Typically in token economies, this is used, but we're removing something contingent on behavior. Negative reinforcement, not a punishment procedure. So in this case, what's happening? Well, they make a giant mess. Then when they get home, they have to clean the entire house. Well, they made the mess in the living room. If we're repairing the living room plus more, this is a good example of restitutional overcorrection. Pretty easy question, right? Not too hard. Take advantage of the easy questions. Get those right. If the client relationship was terminated, how long must you wait before engaging in a sexual relationship with the client or stakeholder? Ethics question. A lot of ethics is very black and white, meaning you just need to know it. In this case, we're talking about engaging in a sexual relationship with the client or stakeholder. There is a time limit, okay? Now, the ethics code is vague, if at all, about friendly relationships with clients and stakeholders after the relationship is terminated. But sexual relationships, they're very explicit. So how long must we wait? 30 days, 1 year, 2 years, or 5 years? So if you don't know, the answer is 2 years. Very explicit in the ethical code. You have to know this number, okay? If the client relationship is terminated, you have to wait 2 years before engaging in a sexual relationship with the client or stakeholder. Whenever I visit Louisiana, we go to the river. Sometimes we'll see a sign that says, "Beware of alligators." What does the sign function as? All right. Whenever you see signs with things like beware or stop, start to think rule-based, okay? Now, have we ever been bitten or eaten by alligators? No. So our behavior is not functioning on a contingency of alligators being dangerous, right? Because we've never actually been bitten or attacked. However, this idea of beware of alligators is signaling to us this is what we should be doing. Okay, since we were little, this is the rule we have followed. All right. So don't overcomplicate rules and contingencies. Contingencies, behavior has been maintained because the contingencies actually occurred. The consequences occurred. We've had this rule and it's prevented the contingency from happening, right? So when we see a sign that says beware of alligators, we haven't experienced the contingency. Our behavior is not contingency shaped. However, it is rule governed because this sign functions as a rule. It's not a physical prompt. We're not evoking anything. Okay, we're not physically prompting the behavior, right? And it's not a warning. It's a rule. This is the rule. The rule is to beware of alligators, and the sign functions as a rule. You're managing a team of 3 technicians. You write up a plan that involves them taking IRT data on the client's tantrum behavior and then finding the average. First RBT sends you data that says tantrums occurred on average 30 minutes apart. Second RBT sends you the same thing, and the third RBT sends you data indicating running away happened for 30 seconds. This data lacks what? What makes good data? Good data are accurate, valid, and reliable. Accurate, we're measuring the true value of what occurred. Valid, we're measuring what we're actually attempting to measure. Reliability says we can do it over and over again. So in this case, we can't say for sure if the data lacks reliability or not. Why? Well, we've only got one set of data, okay? You write up a plan that involves taking IRT data on the client's tantrum behavior. This is our target. First RBT, send you data that says tantrums occurred on average 30 minutes apart. Great, right? We can't say if that's reliable or not because we don't have a second set of data. So we eliminate reliability. We can't say for sure if it lacks it. Leaves us with accurate and valid. Now, first RBT, 30 minutes for tantrums. Second RBT, same thing, tantrums. But third RBT sends us running away. Now, this data could be accurate. We don't know. Might not be. What we know for sure, though, it's not valid because the third RBT is not actually measuring what we want to measure. We want to measure tantrum behavior. Third RBT measured running away. And if we're not measuring what we're intending to measure, our data lacks validity. Know the difference between accuracy, validity, and reliability. Of the following, which one teaches a replacement behavior? All right, you have to know all the differential reinforcements. The two differential reinforcements that teach replacement behaviors are DRAs and DRIs. DROs, DRLs, DRDs, DRHs do not teach replacement behaviors. So either DRI or DRA. So if we just scan, find DRI, that's our answer. Again, easy question. If this question wasn't easy, you need to go back and review differential reinforcement. Last night at a bonfire, you were bitten by several mosquitoes. Today, your bug bites itch like crazy. You keep itching them throughout the day to stop the itching. Itching is considered what? Do not jump ahead. Do not try to predict the answer here and predict it wrong without actually understanding what the question is asking. This question is very common to talk about negative reinforcement because the removal of the itch is negative reinforcement. Okay, it's reinforcing your behavior. But we're not talking about removing the itch. We're talking about itching itself. And itching is considered what? Well, your bug bites itch like crazy. That's the antecedent. You itch them throughout the day. The response to stop the itching is the consequence. So itching it's not the antecedent. The antecedent is the bug bites itching. Your response is the itching. Okay. You itching them throughout the day is the response. Negative reinforcement is removing the itch. This is why you have to really work hard and know what the question is asking and understand the question. Okay? Don't just go flying through. You have plenty of time. Slow down. What is the question really asking? What do they want you to identify? All right. That'll do it for today. Thank you for watching. We'll be back soon with our next part of our video for our third practice exam. As always, bcbastudy.com for all of our study materials. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.